We'll move on to the class. We're talking about, we've been talking about parables as they relate to reincarnation. And we remember last time the apostles asked Christ, how come you always teaching in these parables? And he said that basically that when people hear a parable, they see a surface meaning and they think they understand it. He says, but the parables I've given have basically at least two meanings. There's a surface meaning, and I give these parables because people can relate to the surface meaning. But then there is a deeper meaning that they miss. And so he says, seeing, they think they see, but they see not. And hearing, they think they hear, but they hear not, neither do they understand. And so all these parables he gave out had a deeper meaning in connection with them. The surface meaning was easy to understand, but the deeper meaning took a little bit of thought. And one of the most interesting parables he gave out was the parable of the prodigal son. And so let's read over this parable. It's kind of an interesting one, and every word in it has some pretty profound meaning. A certain man had two sons. The younger of them said to his father, gather, give me the portion of the goods that falleth me. And he divided them his living, and not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey to a far country. And there he wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him to the fields to feed the swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, for no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, yet I perish with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called by thy son. Make me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said unto his servants, bring forth the best robe, put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh into the house, he heard the music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he recovered him safe and sound. And this brother was angry and would not go in, and therefore came his father out and entreated him. And he answered and said to his father, lo, many years do I serve thee, and neither have I transgressed at any time thy commandment. And yet thou never gavest me a kid that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, and hath thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And the father said to him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad. For this thy brother was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost, and he is found. So, what do you think the Orthodox meaning is? That the regular, when some preacher preaches this in church, who's the prodigal son, and what's the meaning behind it? Do you think Orthodoxy gives it?
Well, you have a member of the church who goes astray, and he goes out into the world and he enjoys the fruits of his father's labor, but he has to be recalled, and he comes eventually back into the fold. But there's conflict between him and his other brother over the fatted calf, and does he really deserve it? But in the end, yes, he does, because he's his father's child.
Yeah, in a regular group, if somebody strays from the group, and if it's a spiritual group, and then somebody goes and with wild women, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and they repent and come back, they are often given tremendous welcome and a lot more recognition than the guy that never left. And the guy that never left often feels short shifted. And is he justified in feeling that way? What do you guys think? Maybe you've been in a family where uh, you have brothers and sisters, and the kid that's the most rebellious gets the most attention, and you don't get enough attention, even though you've been a good kid. Okay, that doesn't hardly seem fair to a lot of people. But
Well, yeah, the one who stayed home, he gets the greater blessing, so don't venture out into the world of experience. Stay home, Be a good boy. Go to church on Sunday.
yeah, but yeah, there's a
on, on a lower level, well, I was just going to say, the the personality would certainly feel, if we're centered in our personality, we would feel that way. But if we had a broader perspective, um, then I don't, then we probably shouldn't worry about it. It's not a big deal.
yeah
But it's
that
interesting that the brother, we might have to deal with that in this group sometime. There have been people who've come and gone over the course of the past 30 years with your group, JJ. And, if we get the ball rolling on the molecule and things start moving along, there may be a lot of people that go, oh, hey, yeah, I'm back in.
yeah
And we'll have to deal with those emotions. On the one hand, it's like, great, come on in. On the other hand, well, where were you when we did the hard work? So none of us escapes that scenario.
yeah, and the brother that stayed home needs to learn a lesson because if you're in any group, if it's a good group, and say you're in a group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you're close knit, and one guy breaks off and he goes back and to drinking again, okay, and he does a whole bunch of reckless things, and then after a couple of years he comes back in. When he comes back in and really becomes dry again, then the group as a whole, they should really rejoice over him. He'll get more attention than the guys that didn't leave the group. And but that's justifying because he was lost and now he's found, like it says there. So it's natural that the group should rejoice over him. And if some member of the group says, hey, you never rejoiced over me like this, and I've been solid all this time, and I haven't touched a drop of alcohol for 20 years, you should be happier about me than this character that went and almost ruined his family and everything. But so that we can see from this perspective that a person with this attitude, he's just misled. We should really be happy if the guy changed his life and made something of his life again and got his life under control. We should be happy about that. So that's an important teaching in there that the orthodoxy kind of sees that. That if a person really screws up his life and comes back, that's a pretty big deal, because if he didn't come back, his life was pretty much worthless, and we don't want that for anybody.
Well, according to the Tibetan, we've all of us have reached our nadir or our lowest point of materialism, where we've saturated ourselves with carnal experience, with everything, all things come alike to all of us. And we're all on the ascent mode going into the OM, where we're releasing ourselves from the poles of matter, but we've all descended to the lowest point.
And
In
that's
Christianity, they say all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But we have to approach every situation with understanding, loving understanding, and pure reason.
Yeah, and this is where reincarnation comes in, is all of us have gone through the prodigal son, even by the Orthodox interpretation of this. It's just not have part of the sons of God are faithful and part of them are just going out and living ruinous lives. It's the fact that all of us have gone through this cycle where we've been good guys and we've been bad guys, and we have to go through all these experiences and all these temptations and in and out of them to really appreciate the stability of the Father's house, so to speak. When that prodigal son came back, he realized that, the Father's house was a place of stability and peace and abundance, and everybody had everything they needed. And I kind of threw it all away, and now I realize how good it is back here. And so that's pretty much the Orthodox interpretation. What do you think is a deeper interpretation? What do you think? I bet somebody's got some idea.
There's numerous.
Yeah.
There's numerous variations of the prodigal experience, right? There's the story of the 2/3 that came to planet Earth, just in our solar system. Yeah. 1/3 stayed behind. That was a prodigal experience. To choose you could look at it that way.
Yeah.
You could go higher than that, even back to before time and space itself, when, according to this new theory that you have about the creation of God, that we came down and, a third of us decided to come down and create this matrix that we live in now. So that was a prodigal experience, removing ourselves from the presence of the Father. So you have all these levels of so-called rebellion throughout history, where we've repeatedly separated in order to have experience and to learn and grow, and then to do our best to return.
Yeah, also it's overcoming the lower poles, the poles of the lower personality, overcoming Maya, glamours, and illusions in our ascent.
Yeah, A Course in Miracles gives a pretty good, interesting explanation. It really puts some pretty strong emphasis on this parable, and the fact that it said in the beginning, before there was time and space, there was the sonship, at least part of the sonship, wanted to see what it would be like to have limitations, because in the Father's house where we all dwelled in the beginning, there were no limitations. There was no want. There was nothing to fear. We had everything accessible that was in all creation, and creation was expanding. And so, but it was in the realm of spirit where there was no limitation. So the Son got this idea to create worlds of time and space where there would be limitations. And that way we could find out what it would feel like. We wanted to know, there was a portion of us wanted to know what it would feel like to be limited and to experience worlds of time and space where there was form and challenges, and where we could also play games. Because where you're completely unlimited, you can't really play a game. If you try to play a game of golf, you're going to hit a hole in one every time. So it's not really a game. We're in the higher realms where there's no limitations. So we wanted to go create a realm where there was limitations. And then it tells us that we asked the Father for permission to do this, and he didn't want to give it to us, because he said if he give us permission, then whatever he does is eternal, and we would be stuck here for eternity. But we still wanted to do it. And the only way we could do it was in a dream state. So we put ourselves to sleep and entered this world of time and space in an illusionary state. And we became as the prodigal son here, in the fact that we broke off from the Father's house. We wanted to explore the world out there. It says he went to a far country, and in this country, he wasted all his inheritance. So he had no inheritance left. And that's symbolic of us coming down here into this world of time and space. And we don't see ourselves as sons of God. We don't see ourselves as having the power of a son of God. We see ourselves as powerless. We have forgotten who we really are. And then the Course teaches us that the way back is to remember who we are. And it says what the Father did, because he could not come down to this world or else he would make it real. He created the Holy Spirit as a bridge between the two worlds. So the Holy Spirit is available to guide us back. And so when we're eating these husks along with the swine, and we enter that lowest state of frustration, we ask, well, there's got to be something better than this. Then we get the contact of the Holy Spirit that tells us it's time to return to the Father's house. And so all this happens over a period of lifetimes. And the Course tells us that it will take millions of years for the whole procedure to play out. Many millions of years, it says. So, so for the prodigal son to play out correctly, where we go through this period where we leave the Father's house, we go through all these experiences, we come to the realization that we want to return. It doesn't happen just in one lifetime. Has to happen over a period of many lifetimes. and we then eventually do return. And
Read the according, Adam was saying the 60 billion souls chose embodiments, but 30 billion did not. If you want a real clear picture of that, go to Treatise on Cosmic Fire and read the stanzas of Zion, and it explains how it over eons of time, the builders using the AUM sound created these forms. It was not an easy thing. It didn't happen overnight. And it was a real challenge to enter into the forms because that's where evil was created when through the materialization of spirit into matter. And so
all this, what's interesting though, is all this happened after the big separation. There was the big separation, and then after that, there are separations even after that, and conflicts, but even that third will eventually enter into form, and they're part of the ones that they're even them are all of them grouped together are part of the original prodigal son.
it says there
Prodigal sons within prodigal sons.
it says it called the 30 billion, it called them laggards. And the laggards in the highest sphere heard it echo through the scheme, not till the seventh eon, but at the 14th seven will the chance again come around. The first shall be last, and time be lost for eons. So
that's where the prodigal son could almost be reversed, and you could almost view the 30 billion that stayed behind as the prodigal having the prodigal experience because they refused to incarnate at that time. So it's interesting how, depending on the perspective, you can see the prodigal experience different ways.
yeah, that's a twist.
That's a good point, Adam.
Yeah, so the 30 billion are the prodigals.
Yeah, the prodigal son idea repeats. We have our original break off from spirit and come down to the worlds of form, and within the worlds of form, there are prodigals within the prodigal, so to speak.
Right.
And but we return to one home, and then we find out there's a higher home, and then find out there's a higher home still, until we eventually get back to our true source, which is a very long journey. And people don't want the journey to be long. Everybody wants it to be over at death or salvation, and they don't realize that this process takes many, many lifetimes.
Well, you got to be happy where you're at in the here and now. That's
what about the idea, JJ, of the 2/3 that remained behind before time and space with the Father? And when we return from our experiences in this universe, these universes that we're creating, we kind of talked about this in another meeting, but the 2/3 that remain behind might have some feelings of, well, you guys, why is the Father welcoming you back so with such open arms? We stayed behind with the Father.
Well, we're not given a figure as to how many stayed behind. No, in Mormon teachings, a third were denied bodies. And then 2/3 were able to incarnate into physical bodies. That was a blessing in Mormon teachings.
Didn't you, in your book, your new chapters of the molecular relationship, I mean, you might have just put it out there as a generic number, but didn't you say it was 1/3 came down to create the universe?
I don't remember saying that. I'll have to look it up. But I believe what happens is there's many different creations. We have now believers in A Course in Miracles see the separation. There was one separation, and then we go back, and then it's over and done. But the Course in Miracles itself gives several hints that this repeats, and the esoteric teachings tell us it repeats. So on the higher spiritual spheres, new monads are being stimulated all the time. And so the old, a series of monads comes down and creates the worlds of form, and then they return and they stimulate a bunch of new monads, and they develop, and they begin to wonder, well, what are the worlds of form like? I want to find out. And so they create, these new monads create a new universe, and they want to go down and they want to see what it's like to go through that process. So it just happens over and over. So there's actually probably just a small portion of the spiritual lives that come down in this universe at any one time. There's a large number that have gone through the process and think, well, been there, done that, and I'm moving on. And so there's, and even with the masters, the Tibetan says there's a limited number of masters. There's 49 in the work with the physical plane, and there's many others that have moved on that we don't even know about, but they were moved on to like higher work. But there's a certain number that's interested in staying and working with humanity and helping them out.
It's the those that remain behind. It's hard to attribute characteristics the way we do to human personality to monads that are on the other side of time and space, that are in a very high state. So it's not a perfect correlation, but I wonder if there is some sort of resistance when the return occurs, and that there is some correspondence to the parable of the prodigal son, where the brother, so to speak, is kind of creates a little bit of a barrier that, I don't know, something like that.
Well, you can see in the higher spheres, those that didn't come down are supposed to, the Father welcomes the ones that come back. Matter of fact, it says in the parable, when the prodigal son began to return, the father was waiting a long distance off, looking for his son to return, hoping for him to come back. And he went and embraced him immediately. Whereas the son was afraid that the father would be angry at him. And so that's the basic fear of God is around that idea that, I've screwed up so much that if I met God, he'd probably be angry at me. That's or he might want to just squash me under his thumb, into oblivion. And that's a fear that's built in to everybody, that we all have to overcome that fear of God, because the truth to be revealed is that the Father is waiting anxiously for us to come back. And as soon as he sees any sign of us coming back, he is willing to welcome us. And that's a belief that is really important. And Jesus emphasized this. He says, you think you're good parents to your children, but God is much better. Now, if your child asks for a fish, will you give him a serpent? If he asks for bread, will you give him a stone? No. He says, you know how to give good gifts to your children, but the Father, he says, my Father knows how to give much better gifts than fathers here. Yet we are afraid. We are afraid that, boy, if I were to enter the presence of God, he'd probably be really disappointed in me. And we all have that thought to some degree, because all of us have made mistakes. And we tend to think, well, boy, if I stood before the judgment bar of God, he'd probably have a lot against me, you know. And that has to be overcome with the idea that imagine if you have a child and he screws up his life and he comes back and says, Dad or Mom, I want to make things right. That would make you the happiest parent on the earth to have a kid do that to you, you know. And our spiritual father is the same way. And that's the key to overcoming the fear of God, which is a really basic fear that each of us needs to overcome. Okay, any comment on that?
Well, the Course in Miracles, I mean, they call it, you theorize that it's one of the monads that's communicating that, right? To Helen Schuckman.
Yeah.
One of the monads on the other side. So
I'm
brother.
I'm not convinced it's the Christ, but it's some very high entity.
Yeah. But that would be like the brother that's waiting for us to return, telling us this was a mad idea. What are you guys thinking? So I wonder about that. If there is a correspondence with the brother aspect that's in the parable.
Yeah, I think it's quite possible. The Course in Miracles is written as if this whole existence is a complete waste of time. But most esoteric teachings teach that no, it's not a waste of time. We have experiences to gain here that cannot be had in the higher spiritual realms. And so there's I think there's some major disagreement in the higher spheres about whether or not this existence is worthwhile. And just like the brother that stayed home thought it was a complete waste of time for the prodigal son to go out into the world.
And it can probably only be known by those who take the step and know the difference.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Visualize the prodigal son coming home and everyone gathering around the campfire and telling stories. Who do they want to listen to the stories of, the prodigal son or the son that stayed home? Son that stayed home, all he has to tell about, well, I went to work yesterday and worked in the field all day and come home, and that's about all I got to say. The prodigal son says, yeah, I met this really wild gal that just took me for a ride. And so gathering around the campfire, everybody wants to listen to the stories of the prodigal son. And they're pretty interesting stories. So anyway, there's a definite benefit for this coming down and going through this the worlds of time and space, I would say. And then when we return, we can reflect on those experiences if we want. Okay, my friends, good discussion, and we will continue this next week and talk about additional evidences of reincarnation. And to really understand the prodigal son, you have to factor in reincarnation, because you just can't do it all in one life. There's only a few things you learn in one single life, and there's so much more to learn than the experiences of 20, 40, 50, 60, 80 years, even 100.
Well, Madame Blavatsky wanted written on her tomb before she passed. She wanted written, "It's all a waste of time."
Oh, really? Yeah, well, that's what the Course in Miracles says. So, well, when everything is said and done, once enough time passes, well, it's as if the past never occurred in some ways. But we have that built-in experience that is with us, that the cause and effect is always at play. Okay, my friends, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, may the Spirit be with you.